Good evening, dear viewer, and thank you for tuning into BrandPlus TV. First things first, we would like to apologize for the delay. Challenges are inevitable, but here we are, and we would like to say thank you for your patience. That said, good evening once again, and thank you for tuning into BrandPlus TV. It's always a delight knowing that you have taken your time and are keeping us company. My name is Ondiro Ganga, ready to bring you up to speed with all the top stories making headlines today. And as you know, we're all about business. Here's a glance.
We could have a dialogue and we could have a discussion about how we can have a ceiling on the debt, such that it is not simply an open window where borrowing could continue conceivably forever.
Amending the Public Finance Management Act, Mgwen Constituency Legislature seeks to amend the Public Finance Management Act.
Yes.
CAPEX Conference 2018, forum aimed at improving deal fluency in the East African region.
The missing middle and financing.
Fuel tax suspension, good news for the consumer, bad news for the taxman. Pwani Oil launches SMEs Empowerment Program. Pwani Oil launches campaign to empower its distributors. Now on to our top story. Kenya has in the recent past made strides in infrastructural development. From Thika Road to the standard gauge railway, Kenya seems to be on the fast track towards modernization. However, all the glory comes at a price, a heavy burden in form of debt. Now, the rising debt has seen various stakeholders sitting uneasy. However, the Mgwen constituency Member of Parliament, Honorable Alexander Kosgei, has decided to take action. The lawmaker has given notice to the Speaker of the National Assembly on amending the Public Finance Management Act. He proposes that there should be a cap to government borrowing, which must first be approved by Parliament and a clear pay plan availed. Our reporter Karari John attended the press briefing and gives us more details.
Kenya's national debt stands at Kenya shillings 5 trillion, and according to the International Monetary Fund, Kenya's debt to the GDP ratio, it is at 57% and is the highest in the region, followed by Burundi at 55%, Uganda 40%, Rwanda 39%, and Tanzania at 38%. An international credit agency, Modi, has projected that Kenya's debt to the GDP will stand at 60% by 2019. Honorable Alexander Kosgei has seen this growing gap and is seeking to amend the Public Finance Act to cap the maximum borrowing limit at Kenya shillings 6 trillion. On top of that, the plan to borrow has to first be approved by Parliament and a pay plan has to be provided by the National Treasury.
I have this week written to the Speaker of the National Assembly to give notice of my intention to move an amendment to the Public Finance Management Act. I am proposing a bill that will set a clear debt ceiling in the law. The bill sets this ceiling at Kenya shillings 6 trillion. I think we should have a ceiling of where do we want this debt to reach. We should at least set some point and say this should be our ceiling for now. The bill does allow for that ceiling to be raised or lowered at a later stage by Parliament if they so wish. The proposed bill also requires the government to submit to Parliament a clear repayment plan for each new loan that they wish to take at any later point in future.
The lawmaker revealed that every man, woman, and even a newly born owes 120,000 Kenyan shillings. He stressed that the need of implementation of the law governing the rate so as it doesn't overwhelm us as a nation. He said that the 6 trillion mark can be revisited after a dialogue with Parliament and the members of the public at a later date. He further encouraged participation in the matter.
We could have a dialogue and we could have a discussion about how we can have a ceiling on the debt, such that it is not simply an open window where borrowing could continue conceivably forever without any idea of at which point do we say that we are not able to keep borrowing at this level and where do we cap it at.
The Big Four agenda by the president took a huge slot in the 3 trillion 2018-2019 budget, the highest national budget this far. The Member of Parliament was, however, quick to add that this proposed amendment is not to criticize or fight the Big Four agenda.
And I want to be clear, this is not any kind of criticism of the Treasury or of the government. This is just an honest point. The debt is rising, that's a fact. And it is rising at an alarming rate, that's again a fact. It's not a criticism of anybody. Now, we all support the Big Four agenda, and what we want is to have that agenda achieved, but we'd also not want at the end of the term to have achieved that or not achieve that because we have a debt crisis. Because that debt crisis is a serious issue.
Debt ceiling are also in other countries of the world, including Poland, Denmark, and Malaysia. As the stage is set for debate and discussion about our debt rate, all eyes are locked on Parliament if they will adopt these amendments. Reporting for BrandPlus TV, I am Karari John Wampogo.
On to Match's investment now. Africa has been termed as the next investment hub, but that may be a little bit misleading given the massive investment already pouring into the continent. It would be safe to say that Africa is the best investment bet to the world over. Now back home, Kenya is seeing massive foreign and local investment and still with great potential for more. It is for this reason relevant stakeholders in the finance and investment sector congregated for the CAPEX 2018 conference held at the Zeon Hotel, Nairobi. Now, the event seeks to foster collaboration, improve deal fluency, and share best practices in finance in the East African region. Take a look at that story. The CAPEX 2018 conference brought together investment and finance professionals as well as potential investors to chart the roadmap for the East African investment landscape. The conference saw a panel of experts discuss the investment opportunities available in the region. However, the stumbling block to the opportunities are the challenges that investors continue to face by the day.
The way you approach business in each of the African markets needs to be distinctly tailored to that market. You cannot approach the market thinking that what worked in Kenya, for example, the way M-Pesa was implemented in Kenya would work in Uganda or in Tanzania. And we've seen that in Tanzania, for example, each of the players has had a much more substantial role than in a similar sense that Safaricom did in Kenya. That's in how the different markets are fragmented and have to be looked at individually.
While the East African investment landscape is distinctively different, it still offers excellent investment opportunities. Faith Chege, an associate at Factors Venture, reiterated that investors must be keen to identify high-potential investment opportunities that are available to them in the region. The question is, how?
What we do is beforehand, we do a lot of research along these sectors and ask ourselves what are the gaps in the value chain and what are the opportunities that we can address, what applies and makes sense for the Africa market and the India market, which are areas in which we operate. And then after that, we then go out there and start looking for those companies. And what we have found is that with that kind of approach, you know what it is that you're looking for most of the time.
Africa has been at the forefront of growth and development, with countries like Kenya playing in the same league with economic giants in the fields of technology and innovation. The continent is slowly but surely unlocking its own potential and presenting investment opportunities to both local and international investors. While the pace of investment keeps growing, investment risk remains to be the elephant in the room. To address this, experts say it is important to explore the kind of risk an investment is likely to face and explore risk tolerance mechanisms.
I think one of the ways we can develop risk tolerance mechanism is customizing our investment requirements to the companies that we are available here, especially in the African and the East African market. So the companies in East Africa, they're high growing, they're very innovative, they're very different from what we see across, and the kinds of investment needs they also have are very different. They require investors to be more flexible in terms of the amount of money they're putting in. They also need the investors to be more hands-on in providing the sort of support that company needs. So to develop risk tolerance, it's sort of to get out of our mind of this is what I want from a company to this is what a company needs, and being a partner with the company to get to where we all want to go. The company wants to grow, it wants to scale. Investors want to make returns. So let us come together and see how can we achieve that common objective together, as opposed to this is you have to tick 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes and the company has to meet these needs. It's more of a partnership and saying we have this funding, we need to provide returns, the company needs to grow. So how can then we come together and get to this objective?
The conference in its first edition seeks to champion the African professional experience and has taken the initial step in trying to create synergy in the investment finance ecosystem. Hopefully, next year, when the second edition takes place, the impact of this inaugural one will have been felt across the East African investment finance ecosystem.
Thank you. So,
moving on to other matters now, a 16% fuel levy by the National Treasury was set to take effect on the 1st of September. However, the National Assembly once again curtailed its implementation for the third time in a row in the last 2 financial years. Now, the House postponed the levy for another 2 years, making the new implementation date 1st September 2020. Our reporter Karari John had a sit-down with a tax expert to understand what the suspension means to the consumers and the government, and brings us the following report.
With the current high cost of living, Kenyans were again presented with a rather shocking proposal by the National Treasury, a 16% fuel levy that will have forced them to dig deeper in their pocket. However, Kenyans can now breathe easy as Parliament once again blocked the move. The legislators, through an amendment introduced by Suna East MP Junet Mohammed, delayed the move by 2 more years. I sat down with Victor Kiamba, a tax lawyer and an advocate of the High Court, to understand what the levy and its suspension translates to.
The levy on 16% VAT on petroleum products was to finance a part of the government budget that was read a few months ago. I also understand that the government has some continuing development agendas, some other development agendas that are underway, others are proposed, and many more projects that the government has. Well, I understand the intention of the government was to have more revenue to substitute whatever they may have from other sources of income, mainly revenue. You do understand the main income to the government is revenue, which is taxes. The suspension of this tax, of course, it's going to have a great impact on both the government and the citizen generally.
I further sought to understand why petroleum product with a far-reaching implication such a levy would have on the commodity.
Source of revenue that is readily available. Every day we use petroleum products in the transport industry, in manufacturing, in energy sector, basically everywhere it's petroleum products. We have a high reliance on petroleum and petroleum products. So I would say yes, that's a readily available source of income for the government.
The government has twice deferred the implementation of the 16% value-added tax in the last 2 financial years, following public outcry. This time, it's not clear what will be the next move of the National Treasury, given that part of its budget financing has been suspended.
The government has to go back to the drawing board. It has to go back and now think of what next. I see the government could be having 2 or 3 options that it can do. One is to go back to the projects that they have. Are they going to scale down on the projects? Are they going to stop the projects completely? Are they going to suspend the projects? Or are they going to, the other option, borrow to finance the projects? We already know the government has borrowed heavily, especially from world bodies like the IMF and World Bank, from other nations like China. Of course, everyone has been talking about China, and the debt is increasing every day to the billions, almost trillions. So the government will really have to decide, are the projects feasible at the moment? And if they are feasible, will borrowing be the better option, or suspending the projects the better option?
Kenyan citizens were prepared for an economic hard-on from 1st September 2018 as the plans by the National Treasury to increase levy on petroleum product by 16%. But this move hit a hard rock when the National Assembly blocked this agenda. Now, the big question is, what is the next move by the government, since this proposal was to facilitate in financing the 3 trillion budget? Reporting for BrandPlus TV, I am Karari John Wambugu.
Well, thank you very much, Karari John Wambugu, for that story. Now let's move on to other matters. Pwani Oil today launched a campaign to build its capacity by focusing on the sustainability of its value chain. Our reporter Daisy Ombo attended the launch and filed the following report.
The company, led by its commercial director Rajul Malde, stated that it's focusing on the sustainability of its value chain by ensuring their distributors have the tools to grow their capacity in tune with the ever-changing market needs.
The idea behind doing this kind of a promotion is to essentially invest in our distributors and ensure that they add to their fleet capacity so that they are able to distribute our products right down to retail. The objective of distribution right down to retail is that, in our understanding, 70% of Kenyan consumers still purchase from the traditional kiosks and dukas, although a lot of supermarkets have come about in the country. And in order for us to reach the over 100,000 kiosks and dukas in the country, we need more wheels on the ground.
The director also lauded the government's commitment to growing the local manufacturing sector under the Big Four agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, Daisy, for that story. Now let's shift gears and take a look at the day's market performance. And here is a summary. Well, that is how the markets performed today. But for more in-depth analysis, tune in tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for my next big bet with Rachel Nderitu and Karanja Daniel as they carry out an in-depth analysis of the financial markets and other investment opportunities available for you, dear viewer. Well, that's all the time we heard. But before we wrap up, we would like to say our bulletin will be airing every single day, Monday through Friday at 9 p.m. And we'll be having a rerun of the same at 10, just in case you missed it. On behalf of everyone that made this bulletin a success, thank you for watching. Thank you for your patience. Have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your viewing. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place.